Hello, I'm Askar Sherlief and you're watching news from Kazakhstan. The trial over inciting social hatred continued in Aktau on Thursday, September 13th, with the interrogation of Zhanaozen oil strike activist Akjanat Aminov. Attorneys requested more time from the judge for preparations, but Murzabekov denied the motion, claiming there is plenty of time until the morning.
Aminov, who wasn't heard a lot during the trial, was quite brief, accepting that he was a leader of a certain group of oil workers during the strike. According to the defendants, only his oil company co-workers were members of the group calling for improvements of labor conditions and additional payments in their wages. When asked of his relations with Vladimir Kozlov and Serik Sapargali, the defendant explained that he only met Sapargali in jail and knows Kozlov as a politician who once helped financially when oil workers needed money. Aminov said that the bloodshed in Zhanaozen is a result of a failure to act rather than support from the opposition. Political activist Serik Sapargali was next up for questioning. He confirmed that he indeed spoke of possible change of state power, but not in the forcible way. Sapargali told the court that after graduating the university back in 1975, he came to Zhanaozen to work as an engineer. Therefore, he is quite familiar with the problems oil workers face and wanted to help them using his experience in the oil business. It was painful to watch this testimony, which sounded like it was straight out of Stalinist times, when people had to confess they did something they never committed. It isn't clear why he did this. Perhaps he hoped for some clemency. In the meantime, the wife of Vladimir Kozlov, Aliya Turuzbekova, informed the reporters that defendant Akjanat Aminov is subjected to pressure exerted by the NSC. Since Thursday, the infamous investigator Baldairov has been trying to force his version of testimonies on Aminov, says Aliya. The NSC officers attempted to ensure that Aminov would literally read the testimony off the paper during the questioning. According to Turuzbekova, Aminov managed to read only what he actually said during the investigation. The NSC will continue to exert pressure to the end of the trial, says Kozlov's wife, and suggests that NSC officers will continue to insist that Ablazov and his associates are terrorists who are contemplating bloodshed while trying to prove this isn't a political case. Turuzbekova believes this is nothing but a flawed logic of the NSC chairman and his puppets. Until recently, they were all detained by the NSC in the same place. Prior to the trial, Aminov, Kozlov and Sapargali were put under pressure to force them to read false testimonies at the hearing on 31st. This is their favorite method. After Vladimir Kozlov was detained, he underwent a surgery, and I was granted a single visit to him on one condition, that state-owned media will cover it, and that indeed happened.
Human Rights Watch representatives are observing the trial over opposition politicians. Central Asian researcher Mira Ritman believes it is being held with numerous violations.
Obviously, Ritman doesn't speak Kazakh, but she was still able to understand that the translation from state to official language and vice versa is far from adequate. In addition, she has once again voiced the position of the international organization regarding the charges brought against political prisoners. This is a crime according to national legislation. However, it might not be considered a crime according to international standards. That is why we believe this is a rather serious issue, and we are very concerned and supported our workers on strike from the very beginning. Trying to solve their problems cannot be considered a crime. He read out the testimony that was given to him, stating that Aminov was preparing a coup under Kozlov's guidance, as he was organizing an armed revolt, and Kozlov provided him with cutting weapons for that purpose.
Freedom House published its second report on violations in the trial over inciting social hatred from the period of August 27th to September 7th and expressed concern with the process.
The search of Mr. Kozlov's cell by unidentified parties, the planting of humiliating materials about his family in his cell, and the failure of the court to adequately respond to these events. The secretaries and bailiffs' regular receipt during the proceedings of notes by SMS and other means that they pass to the judge, and which the judge refuses to describe to the court. The denial of multiple requests of the defense without explanation in violation of the Criminal Procedural Code of the Republic of Kazakhstan. The refusal of the court to make available for questioning key individuals whose names are mentioned frequently in the course of the proceedings, the presentation of the testimony of witnesses for the prosecution who are not made available for questioning by the defense, the appearance of witnesses whose testimony is identical, word for word, raising the possibility of falsification of testimony.
NSDP Azad representatives left the courtroom where their claim against Almaty mayor's office is being considered. The trial lasted a record 9 hours In that time, the judge allowed only 3 breaks: lunch, to satisfy the motion to allow audio recordings of the trial, and to install equipment.
Earlier in the day, Social Democrats questioned representatives of the city administration, although this didn't bring any results, since officials acted as uninformed to produce any meaningful information. Later, the leaders of Azad restarted their motion on the incompetence of defendants, but Judge Yerali Bigbayev dismissed it. After the break, the opposition called its witnesses the participants of many protests: public activist Georgy Arkhangelsky and chief editor of Jas Alash newspaper, Razbek Sarsimbayev. Both recalled misconduct of law enforcement during protest campaigns and city administration's numerous rejections of applications for peaceful assembly. The judge then declared the debates of the parties, which meant that the trial is coming to an end, despite the additional requests of plaintiffs to hear experts and review the video from dissenters' spring protests. The Social Democrats didn't accept such turn of events and left the courtroom. After the break, Judge Yerali Bigbayev found the plaintiffs missing and postponed the hearing until Monday. We just can't be part of this trial. You saw that the judge adjourned the hearing for an hour, although the workday was over. A lot of things are not clear as they contradict themselves. At the same time, they don't want to accept our objections and documents by reasoning that the Administrative Support Office is already finished its workday. Where is the logic in that?
The ruling party Nuratan expressed criticism towards the national referendum and one of the issues it raises. Party Secretary Yerlan Karin gave an interview to Litter newspaper with the official reaction. It is worth noting that presidential advisor Yermuhamed Yertizbayev also publishes his op-ed pieces in the newspaper. The opposition's initiative to hold some sort of referendum on Kazakhstan joining the Eurasian Union, and in particular on the alleged delegation of the state's sovereign political authorities, is an artificial and far-fetched take on the issue. I advise the initiators of the so-called referendum to read the constitution more carefully, since its Articles 2 and 91 clearly state that the sovereignty of Kazakhstan extends throughout the entire territory of the country and no change of the unity, territorial integrity, or the form of governance is allowed. The opposition leaders should focus on more important issues of the country's development instead of artificially bringing the situation to a boiling point. For instance, they could look into the development of proposals for the effective implementation of social and economic reforms or offer the public alternative development programs. In response, Mikhail Sizov, one of the initiators of the referendum, says the idea is to let the people express their opinion on a number of issues. Currently, it is quite hard to clearly say whether Kazakhstan should seek a membership in the Eurasian Union. Supposedly, the opposition is concerned whether Russia could threaten the sovereignty of Kazakhstan. In any way, the initiators of the referendum are open for a constructive dialogue with all interested parties. We don't stand against joining the Eurasian Union, and we are not saying it is a bad decision. We insist on asking the opinion of every citizen of Kazakhstan, and that's the meaning of a referendum, which is a well-accepted practice in learning of a public opinion. Kaztech news agency reports that former Atyrau region governor Bergey Ryskaliyev has crossed the Kazakh-Russian border and left the country. Where is the ex-governor headed and who assisted him with the move is unknown. Ryskaliyev was under house arrest until Tuesday.
The head of state dismissed the governor of Atyrau region from the office due to his poor health condition. That's when the rumor mill started about the official's detention at the airport on his way to London and later about a home arrest. Nobody confirmed or denied the rumors. The exact whereabouts of Ryskaliyev remain unknown, although his family does reside in the UK. A series of high-profile resignations of regional senior officials followed Ryskaliyev's departure, and criminal cases were initiated against some of the governor's staff on budget embezzlement charges. Kazakhstan's internet community often links Ryskaliyev with fraud and organized criminal groups. Besides, according to unofficial sources, Ryskaliyev was a protege of the president's chief of staff Aslan Musin and even served him as his treasurer.
Corruption scandals in Atyrau region are finally shaping into concrete facts. A person involved in the criminal cases instigated against the financial police has finally appeared. On Thursday, colleagues of the Anti-Corruption Authority detained the former first deputy governor of the region, Bolat Daukenov. It is yet unknown what he is accused of. The Atyrau Region Financial Police Department refuses to comment on the arrest.
I'm told that they're still waiting for confirmation. The Regional Treasury Department head Baurjan Jantimirov was also arrested along with Daukenov. According to the General Prosecutor's Office on Thursday, it initiated a criminal case for the embezzlement of almost $750,000 allocated by the state for the construction of a landfill to dispose solid waste in Atyrau. In the interest of the investigation, no additional information was disclosed. Meanwhile, experts believe that the recent bombing and the ensuing special operation are linked to the corruption scandals and latest staff reshuffling in the region. Some speculate that the terrorist attack is a response from the key people involved in the criminal cases. As expected, despite the complicated situation in the region, the country's MPs don't even try to find out what was happening there, choosing not to raise the issue. Only on Thursday, while answering questions of journalists in the lobby, the former defense minister and current MP Mukhtar Alkimbaev commented on the operations of security forces, which left 5 suspected terrorists dead. Alkimbaev supports the actions of law enforcement agencies and in fact believes that criminals should be eliminated without a trial. For instance, if they are entrenched in a house somewhere and started shooting and killing the special unit fighters, what should they do? I stand for the elimination if they use weapons. They're going against our state, its foundations and stability.
The chief imam of the Central Regional Mosque commented on the results of the special operation in Kulsare village of Atyrau region, labeling those who resisted the authorities as terrorists. Political expert Marat Shebutov shares the opinion that a possible act of terrorism was prevented in the region. Opinions in the next report.
In Kulsare, the residents of the first micro-district are returning to their houses. After the evacuation, panic and fire in the neighborhood, it is not easy for the people to return to everyday life. Yesterday, many of them didn't let their children to go to kindergartens and schools. After the raid, in which 5 suspects were killed and 1 was seriously injured, the security officials did not explain to residents what happened the day before. We are terrified. The situation is tense. We went out and saw the streets were teemed with police officers. It was clear that it wasn't a leak. We were absolutely horrified and stunned. The names of the people killed in the siege of the house still remain unknown. They are said to have come from Kurmangazi district, near the town of Kulsare. However, for the chief imam of the Central Mosque of Atyrau region, everything is almost clear. He believes the killed were followers of the religious movement Takfir. According to the chief imam, shortly before the raid, the suspects called someone and said they would soon die and meet God. He is convinced that only terrorists, but not true Muslims, can do such horrible things. The General Prosecutor's Office suspects a connection between the terrorist group in Kulsare and a suicide bomber Nurlubek Sakaoov, who died in a blast on September 5th in Atyrau. Political analyst Marat Shebutov considered this version quite plausible. The administration of the Atyrau region reported about 8,000 registered Salafists, which means 2,000 of them are Takfirists and about 200 are clandestine terrorists. Their main goal is to terrorize law enforcement agencies to let them to develop peacefully. However, once they have developed, they will seize power. Yesterday, the expert shared his point of view concerning a new draft law on countering terrorism through the website Blast.kz. He stated that the government has responded to the issue with a delay of 5 years and now intends to counter the propaganda of extremist ideas. If the document is approved, it will primarily impact ordinary citizens. Sheputov says entrepreneurs, whom the authorities will consider a vulnerable group to terrorism, will be forced to spend money on their property protection. In stores, customers will pass through metal detectors. There will be more police raids on households. It is proposed not to return the bodies of terrorists to their families after raids and keep their burial places in secret. The personal protection of the president and senior officials will be stepped up as well. The draft law also includes clauses on hijacking of planes and ships, which if passed, will allow to destroy objects in case it will be deemed impossible to free the hostages.
3 major special operations were conducted in Kazakhstan over the last 3 months. The first took place after an explosion in Tausamal village where 8 people were killed. Officials were led to the Tun settlement in Baganashil. 9 suspected terrorists were liquidated.
1 patrol officer was later killed in Almaty, and law enforcement agencies retaliated with storming an apartment located in the residential district Aksel Kent. 5 alleged criminals were killed and 1 was arrested during the operation. The last emergency took place in Atyrau when a blast took the life of a young man who was labeled a member of extremist organization. A few days later, law enforcement eliminated a group of terrorists in Kulsare town. During this operation, 5 people were killed and 1 was arrested, with 4 other men arrested earlier in relation to the same case. In total, law enforcement agencies summarily eliminated 19 people during special operations and arrested only 2 men throughout the whole summer.
President Nazarbayev launched the construction of the Balkhash electric station with South Korean President Lee Myung-bak. As the national leader announced, the project will become a model of the world's best electric stations built under the policy of green technology.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, now the presidents will make a joint press statement.
South Korea and Kazakhstan will cooperate in the area of nuclear energy after Seoul will begin the exploration of the Zhambyl deposit in the Caspian Shelf. Nursultan Nazarbayev said on Thursday the Korean investment in the Kazakhstan's petrochemical industry amounts to over $6 billion. Additional $4 billion will be allocated for the construction of Balkhash power plant, which will be named after the two leaders, Lee Nazarbayev. The name was suggested by the nation's leader himself. All pre-production work is completed and the process to be used are selected. This will be a green tech project where harmful emissions will be removed, and the Korean partners are saying this will be a flagship for building power plants around the world.
Residents of Block 61 in the South Kazakhstan town of Kentau live for 7 years with no water supply. Enraged citizens raised the issue on all levels, but it is yet to be resolved, in spite of the resources allocated for the clean water program. People are also upset by the fact that the neighboring presidential park uses water without limitations. More on the conflict in the next report.
Duysunaly Jusupov, the 49-year-old father of a large family, is wheelchair-bound. Every day he has to make several trips to bring water home in special canisters. A few of such runs through the run-down roads caused the man some serious asthmatic fits. For Duysunaly Jusupov, every drop of water is precious. Many times he addressed the issue to different offices, including the Prime Minister and Parliament, but without any success. A month after my last appeal, the Deputy Mayor of Kentau, Mr. Kazhamkulov, sent me a response where he indicated that I already received the assistance in the form of the wheelchair and 40 diapers. I called him and explained that I asked to connect my neighborhood to the water pipe. How long can I wait? Do I have to continue appealing all the way up to the president? I don't know what else should I do now. I want the mayor to see how it's like to carry the water on this wheelchair just for 1 day. The neighbors have the same problem. Looking for a source of water is an everyday necessity for the people of this area for many years now. Residents of 15 houses make a few runs every day to the only local water pump to get some water for cooking, laundry and other household needs. But the doors of the house where the water source is located aren't always open. We take water from our neighbors, but sometimes they close the doors and we have to go to the park. The Nazarbayev Park always has water. We have a lot of kids and it is difficult without water, and here in the park they water the trees but don't provide running water to the people. Bewilderment, resentment and indignation, this is the range of emotions of the area's residents. Just 100 meters away on the same street, the life is quite different. Next to the main thoroughfare of the town, there are different houses and a large park named after the first president. Its lawns are watered throughout the day. Residents of the unlucky neighborhood tried to solve their problems on their own by digging a water well, but unfortunately it was unusable. I went to the Water Distribution Authority and left a request, but their director just asked me how I built the house without the water connection. I told him that we dug a well, as we didn't have any other choice. But the water there is not drinkable because there is an effluent disposal line next to it, and the smell is unbearable. But you can't ensure that kids don't drink it, so when you do, they get sick. Area residents are puzzled as they don't know where else to go. Water didn't come to the area even after the funds were allocated from the state budget under the Clear Water project in the amount of over $3 million. But it looks like officials in the mayor's office never heard of the long-existing issue. The staff assures that there is water in the area according to the documents. So according to these documents, the area has water. Of course there is water. It should be there. It might be that there is no water for a couple of days, but in that case we deliver it by water trucks. We have not received any information saying there is no water there. They do not have running water at all and have to take water from the neighbors. I don't know where this can happen. Let's go there and see. Once on location, the official seemed to be surprised and attempted to explain himself, saying that he is new in the office and never heard of the problem before. The official promised to resolve the water issue as soon as possible. However, people didn't believe him and already began collecting funds to lay water pipes on their own. Now they only ask the local officials for the heavy machinery. It is yet unclear how this water conflict will be resolved and whether Dusenali Jusupov will have to continue his everyday routine.
Higher education in Kazakhstan is becoming increasingly inaccessible to village residents. Senator Kuanush Aytakhanov is concerned with the problem facing rural youth. He's issued an inquiry on the name of the Prime Minister.
The number of students from rural areas fell by 40% compared to 2005 and 2006. The senator believes the reason for this is the poor quality of equipment in schools. While cities have new teaching manuals, interactive boards and other technology, remote areas don't even have internet. As a result, when rural graduates are trying to enter universities, they're much less prepared than young people from the cities. They cannot aspire to receive grants, and if they decide to enter universities on a commercial basis, it is often impossible due to high costs of education. For instance, the tuition in the Kazakh British University is almost $10,000, which is unmanageable for students from provinces. The lowest tuition is around $2,500. If there are 2 students in the household, they need $5,000. In such a situation, many kids from the country can get higher education. If this continues, only the kids of wealthy people will study in universities.
Trials over the death of schoolchild Alexander Divin continues in Pavlodar region. On the dock is teacher Alish Zhunusov, who saw the teen alive last. According to the investigation, it was him who called the high school student inside a basement and had a, so to speak, preventive conversation with him, after which the boy died. The court hearing was held in Chernoretskaya village, where the deceased student and his teacher, who is suspected of murder, reside. More details next.
The investigation of the death of 16-year-old Alexander Divin is back to where it started. In October 2011, the teenager was found dead in the premises of this school. A field court hearing was held here on Thursday, with the judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers trying to reconstruct what exactly had happened. The prime suspect in a high-profile criminal case, the PE teacher Alish Zhunusov, was escorted into the school by the police. First, Zhunusov and the rest of the trial participants went to the basement, where nearly a year ago he stayed one-on-one with Sasha Divin. The teacher claims he didn't hurt the boy. Instead, he only wanted to talk to him about his attendance. Yet it doesn't seem clear why would the teacher hold a counseling with the student in the utility room. The cement floor is dirty, with some garbage thrown around this place. The hearing itself was held in the classroom of history and law, which was vacated not long before. The questions revolved around defendants' behavior in the team. However, the teaching staff couldn't say anything negative about their former colleague. I'd describe him as a normal person. I never noticed anything strange about him. In the meantime, the pupils of the village school say the opposite. They claim that Ali Zhunusov often used force against children. 7th grader Maxim recalls how the instructor was forcing him to confess to stealing a mobile phone, allegedly even threatening the kid with bodily harm. He said if we tell anyone that he used to beat us, he would kill us once he gets out of jail. During the trial, the injured party learned that teachers themselves exerted pressure on minor witnesses. We applied for a supplementary examination. However, when we came to see the students' parents, they informed us that they're afraid to give any more testimonies, just like their children. Indeed, the minors no longer seemed confident, claiming not to remember things. These witnesses were obviously under pressure. The defense advocates for their client's acquittal, saying there is enough evidence in the case to justify the defendant, while the injured party, the Divin's family, requested the most severe punishment for Ali Zhunusov. The mother of the killed teenager is barely holding her tears when she sees the man responsible for her son's death. He smiles and seems to be happy, as if nothing happened. This basement looks terrible. Why would he even bring anyone in there? As if my son was the only one who skipped classes. It is still not the reason to kill, is it? It is worth noting that Ali Zhunusov was considered a witness for a long time. However, now he's facing up to 10 years in prison. The trial will later resume in the juvenile court.
Kazakhstan residents offered to take part in construction of their own apartment blocks to save money. The concept of the project involves 100 labor hours that each family will have to spend on construction in order to lower their costs.
The Coalition of Universal Labor, including experts from labor groups and youth organizations, has put forward the initiative. They appeal to the governor Imangalitas Magambetov, requesting to allocate them a land plot for construction. The search for sponsors is also underway. Per calculations of experts, it is possible to save up to $400 per square meter with the future tenants of the apartment block as manpower during construction. In fact, similar practices were already used during the Soviet Union when people would acquire apartments upon participating in the construction for a year. It is hard to tell whether the system will be a success in modern Kazakhstan. As earlier mentioned by members of the Coalition of Universal Labor, something needs to be changed in Kazakh mentality, and instead of people dreaming of making money while laying on the couch, they need to get up and start working, say the association representatives.
Здесь человек сам идет, сам строит, примерно отработав 100 трудовых часов.
A man would be personally involved working in the construction. The 100 hours of labor will reduce the fee of construction companies, making the actual price for the furnished apartment with household appliances end up at just $1,200.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching and stay well.